Okay, so this video we're going to be going over the combined interview questionnaire that you're going to be doing with both parents together. Again, how I do it, and I know this differs depending on the person. Typically how I format my home visits for any family that's needing the 2-visit format, so not a China family. Usually I do the combined interview in addition to the home visit assessment. I do those two things on the first visit. And then I do the individual questionnaire with the mother and with the father on the second visit, and then the children, whichever visit works better for the family and works with their scheduling. So that's how I do it, but I know everyone does it differently. But I just thought I would throw that out there. So the combined interview questionnaire. This is going to be, these questionnaires are going to be very strong assessment tools in getting to know the family and getting to know what they think and how they feel about different things. And it's not like the questionnaires they completed where they had a lot of time to think and process through. You're going to be asking these and they're going to have to be on their toes, and you're going to be able to really see them process through it and see their answers without any guard up, hopefully. But okay, the first page, you're going to put the applicants' names and the date and time of the interview. How long have you been married? This is under motivation and understanding to adopt. How long have you been married? How long have you been considering adoption? When did you decide to adopt? Did you explore any other options? Have you struggled with infertility? If so, please describe in as much detail as possible your experiences and any fertility treatments received. I know sometimes this can be uncomfortable for a family to talk about, especially because, like I said, I do this on the first visit. So sometimes it can be difficult to talk about, but a lot of times this is a good way to kind of open them up emotionally to discussing things with you, because they know probably that this is coming because they're talking about family planning and adopting, expanding their family. So they likely know that this is one of the areas that's going to be discussed. How have you as a couple, if applicable, processed through the grief of infertility? Why do you want to adopt? Have you told your extended family and friends of your adoption plans? What has been their response? Do you have or plan to have contact with an adoption support group? What is your personal experience, if any, with adoption? Do you know anyone that has adopted or been adopted? And what were their experience and perspectives? How do you feel thus far about the home study process? Do you believe home studies are necessary? What changes do you anticipate in your family post-placement? What do you anticipate being the most difficult aspect of the placement? How can you best prepare yourself to ease this? And who in your family do you anticipate having the most difficult adjustment? How will you ease this adjustment? Again, those last 3 questions about the adjustment is just to get them thinking about it and thinking ahead of time about, okay, who's going to have the most difficult adjustment? If we're adopting, if we have, a 10-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 5-year-old, and we're adopting a 3-year-old, it's probably going to be the 5-year-old that has the biggest adjustment because they're not the youngest child anymore. But we want them to start thinking about that and preparing themselves for that so that they're not blown out of the water when that does hit them. Under the health section, any family household member currently under the regular care of a professional for medical or mental health needs. And this next little section, we're going to ask them about counseling so that we know up front if they've had any kind of counseling. Again, psychiatrist, psychologist, counselor, social worker, therapist, pastoral counselor, any of that we need to know about. So when the counseling occurred, how long, how often, primary reason, and what was the outcome? Was it effective? And then we do put on here, just so that they know, if yes, we need a letter from the counselor detailing the above information as well. I have had situations where families don't even remember who the counselor was. It was 20 years ago. The counselor is no longer in practice. They have no way of contacting them. In those kind of situations, discuss it with your supervisor and see what decision is made on that, because every situation is different, so it's hard for me to give a blanket answer for that. But discuss it with your supervisor, and then you'll move forward accordingly. Has any household member ever been prescribed medication for mental health needs? If yes, what was the diagnosis? What medication was prescribed, including the dosage? How long did they take medication, and was the medication effective? Under transracial or transcultural adoption, this is for domestic or international. If a family that's adopting domestically states that they aren't interested in adopting any kind of race child except Caucasian, I still think that it is good to go over this, because we have had situation where families only open to a Caucasian and they are matched with a baby that is to be born Caucasian, and the child has come out non-Caucasian and they've still moved forward with the adoption. And so it's important to go over this with any family no matter what, especially because this talks about culture too. And even though that child is Caucasian, the culture might be completely different. So it's good to go over this no matter what. How will you help your child stay connected to his or her birth, culture, or ethnicity? How can you stimulate pride in your child about their birth, family, or culture? This is a racial diversity exercise, is this next little thing that we've added. And I can't take any credit from this, because I got it from an adoption conference that I went to like 9 years ago, and they did this, and I thought it was a great exercise for adoptive families. Go through the following individuals and have the parents identify what race, ethnicity the following individuals are. This exercise gives them a glimpse of what races their child will see in their daily life. So grandparents, what race are their grandparents? What race is their pediatrician, their dentist, their pastor, priest, or minister? Family, friends, what's the ethnic makeup, the majority of it in there? Anticipated teachers, neighbors, and what other important individuals will be in your child's life, and what race or ethnicity are they? And then once they have done that, look at that snapshot of what that looks like, and are there individuals in the family's life that are of the same race or ethnicity of the prospective adopted child? When I did this 8 years ago, our life was like 95% Caucasian. Like, we had no different ethnicities in our lifestyle and in our daily routine. And so we had to make changes. So the next question says, what aspects of your life and routine can you change to incorporate individuals in your child's life that are of different races or ethnicities? And this is a good time to talk about intentionality. And that a lot of times we have to be very intentional about incorporating individuals of our child's ethnicity into our child's life. For instance, if you adopt a child that's Congolese, and this is just the first example that comes to mind, a Congolese adopted child, it's probably not in your regular routine to go to a Congolese church or to go to an African restaurant. But making that more part of your routine and being very intentional about, okay, this weekend we're going to go to a Congolese church so that our child can be around other Congolese. So being very intentional about what you do. If it means changing a pediatrician, that's fine. If it means, I've even had families that have moved houses because they wanted to move to a more diverse area, because they didn't want their child feeling like they were excluded, like they were such a distinct minority. Changing school districts, again, I've seen families do. So making intentional decisions to help your child in regards to that. Okay, in these next couple of pages, you're going to see bolded areas. These bolded areas are an explanation to the caseworker of what they need to do. By each one, it says caseworker, and it has a square box. You are going to need to check off that box, because we need to be able to document that you have discussed this with the family. So, in this next section, it says domestic adoption only, and there's going to be an international adoption only. So you're going to go to whichever section is applicable to your family. You're going to do that section, and you're going to mark off on that box that you have done that. So, under domestic adoption only, it says caseworker. Take time to educate the family that oftentimes the information provided during a referral is not as extensive as the adoptive family would like, and they may have many questions which remain unanswered. Also, share that the information which is provided might not be accurate, as the information is sometimes obtained through interview with the biological parent, if possible, and relies on their honesty. When we are working with a birth parent, we have them fill out a document that talks about their medical history, their social history, their drug history, their mental health history. And so all of the information we're receiving from them is completely based on their honesty and full disclosure. And they might not have fully disclosed everything to us. And so we will provide the adoptive family with the information that we have, but it might not be 100% accurate. So the family needs to understand that is a possibility, that we might not have 100% accurate information. A lot of times when we first come to a family to talk to them about a potential situation, they have a lot more questions than information we have answers for. So the family needs to know that not every case are we going to have all of the answers to all of the questions that they have about the case, and that's just a part of adoption, both international and domestic. So then you're going to explain that to them. Then you're going to ask them these 3 questions. You're going to ask them, if you receive a referral with minimal information regarding the child's history, would you be comfortable accepting that referral? And it's yes or no there. No, they're not comfortable, which doesn't necessarily negate them from adopting. It just helps us know that this family only needs to be presented with cases where we are pretty confident that we know everything on the case, the birth mother has fully disclosed everything, and there aren't any surprises. Second question is, how will you respond if you identify desiring a child with no maternal history of drug use and the birth mother identified having no drug use, but the child is born and placed in the NICU due to drug exposure, which we've had happen before and does happen in domestic adoptions. And so the family, again, needs to be aware that that's a possibility, and we need to know up front, would they say, no, we don't want to adopt this child anymore, or would they be comfortable with moving forward with the situation? And again, this is something that their placement agency is going to help them walk through and assist them with and be there for support. We just want to get them thinking about it ahead of time. How will you respond if you have identified desiring to adopt a Caucasian infant, but the child is born and is identified as African American? Again, we've had this happen before, and the family really had to take time to think about it, but they did move forward with the placement, and it was a healthy placement. But again, this is just to get the family thinking that there are unknowns that happen in adoption, and that there are things that are out of our control, and that we don't always have the facts up front. And so this gets the family thinking about that, and also lets us know where if they would say, no, I wouldn't take placement of the infant, that we're going to make sure we show families potential placements where we know the child is Caucasian, where there's not a question about race of the child. I'm going to pause this video, not pause it, I'm going to stop it, and I'm going to go ahead and move to the next video before moving on.